Okay, let's unpack this. Today's deep dive takes us into uh, a market that might seem niche, but is actually pretty foundational, the Bundy Tube Market.
Yeah, it sounds super specific, doesn't it? But, these aren't just random tubes. The research we're looking at from cognitive market research calls them critical components.
Critical how?
Well, they're known for some key things. Their strength, they're cost effective, and they have this compact structure. Really useful stuff.
Right, and those features make them pretty much essential in some, well, really crucial areas. The source highlights uses everywhere from car brake lines, HVAC systems, refrigeration, and a whole range of other advanced manufacturing and mobility solutions. Kind of the hidden plumbing of our modern world.
That's a good way to put it. They're everywhere, often unseen. So our mission here, basically, is to use this source's insights to really get a handle on the market's landscape, how it's changing.
Focusing on what exactly?
We're going to look at the global growth, see which regions are pulling the most weight, and check out the future projections from the data.
Okay, sounds good. So let's dive right in. What's the big picture globally, according to this research? It sounds like there's some real movement happening.
Oh, definitely. So looking at the numbers from cognitive market research, the global market value for these Bundy tubes was $616.4 million. That was back in 2021.
616 million, okay. And where's it heading? Is the growth just kind of steady or?
It's pretty robust, actually. It's projected to hit $790 million by 2025. And then get this, it's expected to jump significantly to $12,297.7 million. So almost $1.3 billion by 2033.
Wow, okay. So nearly doubling from that 2021 number in, what, about 12 years? That signals some serious underlying demand.
It really does. And the math backs that up. The report shows a compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of 6.4% over that whole forecast period. Pretty healthy.
Yeah, 6.4% is solid. And the report links this growth back to the role these tubes play, right? Not just the tubes themselves. What does the source say is pushing this demand?
Exactly. It's directly tied to how vital they are in those key applications. We mentioned automotive braking systems, absolutely critical there, plus refrigeration and heating systems.
Right.
And importantly, the source also flags the accelerating global demand for efficient thermal and fluid transfer systems overall. Bundy tubes are just really good at that job.
So as we need more efficient heating, cooling, braking, we need more Bundy tubes. Makes sense.
Precisely.
Okay, so if that's the global picture, where's the real engine room for this growth? The source mentioned one region is really leading the pack.
Yeah, according to this data, that leader is the Asia-Pacific region. It's driving a huge chunk of the market's current expansion.
Okay, Asia-Pacific. Let's break that down. What kind of numbers are we talking about there?
So Asia-Pacific's market for Bundy tubes, it was valued at $224.1 million in 2021.
Wow. Okay, so already a massive slice of that global 616 million back then.
Exactly, a really big piece. And it's set to grow quite a bit, rising to $288.7 million by 2025, and then the forecast puts it at $497.7 million by 2033. Almost $500 million just in APAC.
That's huge growth. And within Asia-Pacific, is there one country that stands out?
Yeah, the research clearly points to China as the top contributor there. Their revenues tell the story. $91.7 million in 2021, going up to $119 million in 2025, and projected to hit $206.2 million by 2033.
It reflects that massive manufacturing base, I guess.
No doubt. But India is also showing really strong growth, isn't it?
Absolutely. India's numbers are significant, too.
Yeah.
Went from $38 million in 2021 up to $50.6 million projected for 2025.
Okay.
And then it's expected to almost double that again, reaching $90.8 million by 2033. That's a really strong upward curve.
Definitely one to watch. What about Japan, also a major industrial player?
Yeah, Japan's figures are solid, too. $27.8 million in 2021, climbing to $34.7 million in 2025, and projected to reach $57.8 million by 2033.
And the report mentioned others, too.
Right. It also notes consistent growth volumes from South Korea, Australia, and Southeast Asia. So it seems like pretty broad strength across that whole region.
Fascinating. Okay, so Asia-Pacific is clearly a powerhouse. Let's maybe shift over to North America. The source says that's also a pretty significant market share.
It is, yeah. North America clocked in at $189.4 million back in 2021.
Okay. And how's its growth trajectory looking compared to APAC?
It's expected to grow steadily. The numbers show $236.4 million by 2025, and then expanding further to $374 million by 2033. So, a strong curve, definitely maybe just not quite as explosive as some parts of Asia-Pacific.
Right, different dynamics. And within North America,
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
some parts of Asia Pacific.
Right, different dynamics. And within North America, who's leading? Is it mostly the U.S.?
Overwhelmingly, yes. The data shows U.S. revenues were $152 million in 2021, projected to climb to $188.8 million in 2025, and then reaching $296.9 million by 2033. Really underscores the size of the U.S. industrial and auto sectors.
Makes sense. What about Canada and Mexico? Are they significant contributors?
They are. Canada added $18.4 million in 2021, growing to $23.5 million by 2025 and $38.7 million by 2033.
Okay.
And Mexico's numbers are actually very similar. Started at $18.9 million in 2021, forecast to reach $24.1 million in 2025, and then $38.4 million by 2033. So both showing solid growth.
Interesting how close those two are. Okay, so North America is strong. What about the established markets over in Europe? What's the picture there?
Europe's market was valued at $165.9 million in 2021. Substantial as well.
Right, comparable to North America's starting point almost.
Yeah.
And its path forward.
Also steady growth. It's projected to reach $207.9 million by 2025 and then hit $337.7 million by 2033. Consistent expansion there.
And who are the key players driving that in Europe?
Well, the research breaks down several big ones. Germany's major. Figures show $26.5 million in 2021, $34.3 million by 2025, and forecast $57.7 million in 2033.
Okay, Germany's always big in manufacturing.
Right. The UK market grew from $13.9 million in 21 to $17.9 million by 25, expected to hit $29.7 million by 2033. France was $17.9 million in 21, $21.8 million by 25, and $33.8 million by 33.
So similar sizes there, UK and France.
Yeah, pretty close. And Russia actually shows significant numbers, too. It grew from $25.2 million in 2021 to $30.8 million by 2025, and is projected to reach $49 million by 2033.
Huh, interesting. And the report mentioned others contributing significantly.
It did, yeah. It lumps Italy, Spain, Luxembourg, and the rest of Europe together, saying they collectively contribute a substantial share. So demand seems pretty widespread across the continent.
Okay, good overview. Let's move south now. What does the data show for Latin America?
The report pulls out Brazil specifically.
Yeah.
Sales, there were $7.1 million in 2021.
Okay, smaller base.
Smaller base, yeah, but growing. Projected to rise to $12.6 million by 2025 and then $21.5 million by 2033. So tripling over the period, roughly.
That's quite a rate. Are other countries in the region showing growth too?
Yes. The source mentions countries like Argentina, Colombia, Peru, and Chile are all showing steady expansion. It actually highlights Colombia's growth path specifically.
Oh, yeah. What did it say?
It pointed out its CAGR, 6.7%, which is even higher than the global average, moving from just $1.5 million in 2021 up to $4.5 million projected by 2033. So, interesting to see that specific acceleration mentioned.
Yeah, little hotspots of growth. Okay, finally, let's just quickly touch on the Middle East and Africa region. What's the story with Bundy tubes there?
Well, here we see Egypt growing from $1.8 million in 2021 to $2.1 million in 2025, and then $2.7 million by 2033. And Turkey is following a pretty similar trend line, according to the source.
Okay, modest numbers, but growing.
Yeah. And the rest of the Middle East category, that reached $2.6 million in 2021, increasing to $3.1 million in 2025, and projected for $4.3 million by 2033.
How did the source describe that overall region's progress?
It called it stable progress. Noted that the CAGR might be a bit more moderate compared to some of the, the really dynamic regions we discussed.
Got it. Okay, so we've gone around the globe, looked at a lot of numbers. If you sort of pull back and look at all this data together, what's the main headline?
I think the big takeaway from this research is just how clear the upward trend is. And it's everywhere, across all the major global regions.
Right.
Asia Pacific is definitely flagged as leading the charge, but you've got really strong contributions from both Europe and North America keeping pace in terms of volume.
Which, as the source wraps up, it strongly signals this robust and widespread industrial demand for Bundy tubes. They're needed in all sorts of thermal and mechanical systems all over the world.
Exactly. In a market that's just fundamental to so much of modern industry and technology.
It really is fundamental. When you see these kinds of numbers growing from, over $600 million to nearly $1.3 billion globally, and then you remember what they're used for.
Yeah.
Essential stuff like your car's brakes, the fridge in your kitchen, the air conditioning. It suddenly makes sense why this, seemingly small component market is actually a pretty good deal. It reflects the basic needs and the expansion of technologies that you rely on constantly.
Absolutely. So this deep dive really shows The Bundy Tube Market is seeing some serious widespread growth across the globe, and it's all being pushed by these core needs in manufacturing and mobility solutions.
Yeah, and what really stands out is that phrase from the report: robust industrial demand for Bundy tubes in diverse thermal and mechanical systems.
Okay, so let's take that specific finding then. If there's such robust demand for a basic, often hidden component like a Bundy tube, what does that tell you, the listener, about the underlying pace of global industrial activity right now? And maybe about the expansion of all the technologies we use every day, right down to their most basic, unseen parts. Okay, so let's dive in. Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This is where we take the source material you send us and really try to get under the hood. Today, we're looking at something pretty specific, but, well, really important. The market for Bundy tubes.
Right, and based on the material you shared, our goal, I guess, is to figure out what's driving the changes in this market, the challenges and how it's managing to stay relevant.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating how a part most people never even see can tell us so much about bigger shifts in, like, manufacturing and tech globally.
Absolutely. So maybe let's start right there. What exactly is a Bundy tube?
Good question. So essentially the sources say they're these double-walled steel tubes. Pretty specialized.
Uh-huh. And you find them doing really critical jobs, high-pressure stuff, especially in cars.
Exactly, like brake lines, fuel lines, things where failure is not an option. The materials
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
fuel lines, things where failure is not an option. The material stresses their high-pressure resistance, their durability.
Which you absolutely need for safety systems. Can't compromise there.
No way.
And it's not just brakes and fuel. They pop up in transmission systems, too, handling all that vibration and stress.
Right. And where's the demand strongest now? The sources point to places with booming auto manufacturing. Think India, Mexico, China as well.
Makes sense. So they're tough, they're essential. Why have they been the standard for so long?
Well, the material really highlights this balance. They're strong, mechanically efficient, but also cost-effective.
The sweet spot.
Yeah. Reliable without breaking the bank.
Yeah.
And crucially, for making millions of cars, they're apparently quite easy to shape and work with. Easy for mass production.
Okay. And that combination, cost plus durability, it's not just cars, right?
No, definitely not. The sources mention significant use and even growing adoption in HVAC and refrigeration.
Right, cooling systems. So you're thinking condensers, evaporators.
Exactly. Especially in warmer regions where air conditioning is becoming, well, it's essential. Places like Southeast Asia, the Middle East. Bundy tubes are just a practical fit there.
Okay, so they have a solid history, broad application. But, as always, there's a but. This market is feeling some heat, isn't it?
It definitely is. The material points to some significant threats emerging.
Yeah, the big one seems to be alternative materials. Lightweight stuff.
Like what specifically?
Well, things like nylon composites, or even tubes made from copper and aluminum alloys.
And why are those gaining ground? Weight?
Precisely. Weight savings are huge for fuel economy, and even more critical for newer vehicles like EVs and hybrids. Every single gram counts towards range.
So if you're an engineer trying to shed weight, those steel tubes are a pretty obvious target.
They really are. And there's another vulnerability for the traditional steel ones: rust, corrosion.
Ah, right, if they're not protected properly.
Exactly. Especially in humid places, coastal areas, or anywhere they use a lot of road salt in winter, that can lead to serious safety issues, higher maintenance over time.
Okay, and this all ties into the bigger picture, doesn't it? Global regulations.
Uh-huh. Governments pushing for lower emissions, lighter vehicles overall. It kind of indirectly forces manufacturers to explore these lighter alternatives.
Yeah.
It's a real challenge to steel's long dominance in this area.
Sounds like quite the squeeze.
It is, but, the story isn't just about decline. The market's actually proving pretty resilient. It's adapting.
Okay, how? How are they fighting back?
Well, a major factor mentioned is coating technology. Big advancements there.
Coatings to stop the rust.
Exactly. Things like PVF coatings, various types of zinc coatings, they're becoming much more common, almost standard, to tackle that corrosion problem head on.
So that extends the life, maintains safety.
Right, and it's especially crucial for vehicles in tough conditions. Think heavy-duty trucks, or even regular cars in places like Eastern Europe or parts of North America with harsh winters. These coatings make a huge difference.
Interesting. What else is there demand beyond new cars?
Oh, absolutely. The aftermarket is key. Think about all the older cars still on the road.
Right, the global fleet is aging in many places.
Exactly. Regions like Latin America, Southeast Asia, where people tend to keep vehicles running longer, there's a steady need for replacement brake lines, fuel lines. That's reliable business for Bundy Tube Maker.
Got it. Aftermarket resilience. Anything else driving adaptation?
There's also this trend towards manufacturing localization.
Meaning making the tubes closer to where the cars are built.
Yeah, countries like Brazil, India, China, again, they're investing more in producing these parts domestically rather than just importing them.
Why the shift?
It strengthens their own supply chains, which, as you know, is a massive global focus right now. And it helps build up their local industries, too. It's a strategic move.
So if we pull it all together, the Bundy Tube Market is definitely navigating some tricky waters. Pressure from lighter materials, pressure from regulations.
For sure, but it's not sinking. It's showing real adaptability.
Through better tech like coatings, focusing on specific regional needs like the aftermarket, and through localization strategies.
Right. It's leveraging its core strength, that cost and reliability, while innovating to meet new demands. It's a balancing act.
This whole deep dive really shows how even these sort of hidden components are caught in this constant push and pull, doesn't it? Battling technological shifts, cost pressures, environmental targets.
A microcosm of broader industrial changes.
It really makes you think, how many other unseen parts of our global supply chain are going through similar transformations, always making those trade-offs between durability, weight, cost, and sustainability goals.
That's a great question to ponder. What other hidden gears are turning and adapting right under our noses?
Something to think about until our next deep dive.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.